Welcome back. Exciting time here at the Takeoff. Political panel time. Robyn Patterson, Democratic strategist, former spokesperson for President Biden. Leslie Shedd, Republican strategist and former communications director for Texas Congressman Michael McCaul. So what's happening lately is people who are not on the ballot are having to explain things done by people who are not on the ballot. Abdul El-Sayed has to spend a lot of time this week talking about Hasan Piker, who's a Twitch phenomenon on the progressive left, but not on the ballot. Now, Mike Collins on the ballot, Senate Republican nominee in Georgia, former staffer, and we can show this posting on an account that Mike Collins was not aware of, imagery that can only be described as sympathetic to the KKK or anti-Semitic and or both. So how do you evaluate this phenomenon of candidates having to talk about things that they would prefer not to, and they're not directly responsible for, but they are implicated by?
So I think these are two different, the examples you gave are two very different things, right? This kid, this guy, I don't want to downplay what he posted because it was disgusting.
It's vile, straight up.
But, you know, he was an intern, it sounds like, for Mike Collins for 2 months, 2 years ago. It sounds like he had some kind of a one-off contract with his LPAC. He made less than $10,000. I think calling him a staffer or somehow holding Mike Collins accountable for what this specific kid did isn't fair. When it comes to Hasan Piker, this is a different situation. This is a man who has been out there very publicly talking and saying incredibly anti-Semitic things, saying that America deserved 9/11, saying that, you know, American Jews should be blamed for violence against them because they support Israel. This is not acceptable behavior, and you're seeing people like Abdul El-Sayed refuse to condemn that. AOC recently refused to condemn that, and I think that's a big difference than, you know, a former intern that did something, you know, years ago.
Is it a big difference?
You know, I think in Mike Collins' situation, it's not just a former intern. He's someone who he has continued to pay. Mike Collins' son-in-law is someone who lives on his property, but has a history of dealing with people in the KKK, white supremacists. He has some real questions to answer. I do not know what exactly Mike Collins knew or when, but when you're running for Senate and there are headlines with your name and the KKK and white supremacy and neo-Nazis, you're in trouble, especially when in a state like Georgia, a very diverse state that has become very purple. Mike Collins definitely has some things to worry about.
What about the Hasan Piker, Abdul El-Sayed dynamic, which is clearly a complication for him in this campaign?
Definitely, and it's something that folks are talking about. What I will say is I believe Hasan Piker is on Twitch. I'm pretty young.
Well, he for sure is.
Yeah, I've never been on Twitch. I don't think most swing voters in Michigan have been on Twitch, but they have seen how much gas costs, and they have seen how much it costs to buy ground beef at the grocery store. And so I think he does have to talk about these things. It is a question, but there are things more pressing for voters.
So there was a nerdy thing that happened this week, last week actually, but I want to talk about it this week. Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals had an opinion that said what the Supreme Court said most recently about coordination and money from super PACs and national committees to campaigns, some of the regulations can be lifted. But the Fourth Circuit said no. One of the regulations that still applies is they don't get the most preferential TV buying rate. Only campaigns do. It's very nerdy, but it's super important. Who benefits most, Robyn?
From the new ruling, definitely Democrats.
Why?
Democrats have always had an advantage with grassroots fundraising.
Because they have larger campaign accounts. They do not have larger party accounts.
Exactly. The grassroots donors typically give more to campaigns, which means that Democratic candidates typically have more money. Allowing Republican or using committees, combining that spending helps Republicans more. So this ruling definitely helps Democrats garner more of their grassroots funding advantage.
Leslie.
But it's not going to erase the significant cash advantage that the RNC and Trump world has. Trump came
Hundreds of millions of dollars.
I mean, Trump came out yesterday and said he had something like $850 million just in MAGA Inc. alone. The RNC's got like, I think, $130 million cash on hand. The DNC shows $16 million cash on hand, which is a huge difference, right? But their actual money they've got is negative $1.9 million when they pay all their debt. So, you know, yes, do I think that this might benefit Democrats a little bit? Certainly, but the cash advantage Republicans have right now is so big, I think it erases it.
And one of the things I've learned covering midterms and national campaigns, money can account for a lot of things. But if the atmosphere and the message isn't landing, it doesn't matter how much money you have, you can still find your way to losing. Robyn Patterson, great to have you here. Please come back. Leslie Shedd, always good to have you here. Thank you so very much.